Welcome to Her Secret Truth, a place where the truth always comes out. Here you'll hear stories of family betrayals, hidden secrets, and shocking revelations. Every story is a step closer to the truth someone tried to hide. Subscribe to Her Secret Truth so you don't miss new stories you won't be able to stop watching. If you don't like living with us, feel free to leave, Rebecca said, standing in my kitchen like she owned it. 10 minutes later, she was screaming into her phone, demanding the police, claiming I'd completely lost my mind. What she didn't know was that I'd been recording the entire conversation. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because I'm about to explain how I ended up calmly packing my daughter-in-law's belongings while she called 911 on me. It started 8 months earlier, when my son Lucas lost his job at an accounting firm. Just temporarily, Mom, he'd said, standing on my doorstep with Rebecca and 2 oversized suitcases. Until I get back on my feet. I'm Evelyn Grant. I'm 67 years old, and apparently naive enough to believe that temporary still means what it used to. My husband, Thomas, left me this 4-bedroom home in Maple Heights when he passed away 2 years ago, along with a comfortable retirement I earned through 40 years of teaching high school English. What I didn't realize was that I just invited 2 parasites into my house. Mom, you're being ridiculous, Lucas said that Tuesday morning when I gently suggested that 8 months might be long enough. Rebecca and I contribute to this household. Contribute? That was rich, considering they paid exactly $0 toward rent, utilities, or groceries since moving in. Rebecca worked part-time at a salon and somehow spent most of her income on designer coffee and online shopping. Lucas, meanwhile, was job hunting, a process that seemed to involve the couch, my television, and my refrigerator. We do the dishes sometimes, Rebecca added, without looking up from her phone, where she was scrolling through vacation photos from the Cancun trip they'd taken using my credit card, without asking. How generous, I said. Even I could hear the bite in my voice. That's when Rebecca finally looked up. Her eyes were cold, calculating. Evelyn, if you don't like living with us, she said calmly, you're free to leave any time. The audacity knocked the air out of my lungs. In my kitchen. In my house. Next to the refrigerator I bought, eating food I paid for with my pension. Excuse me, I said quietly. You heard me. No one's forcing you to stay here if we're such a burden. Lucas shifted uncomfortably. He said nothing. My own son, watching his wife try to evict his mother from her own home. Something inside me snapped. The old Evelyn would have apologized. Would have backed down. Might have even started packing her own bags. But that Evelyn was gone. You know what, Rebecca? I said. You're absolutely right. I walked upstairs to the guest room they'd been occupying and pulled the largest suitcase from the closet. Rebecca followed, smirking, clearly expecting me to start folding my clothes into it. Instead, I started throwing hers inside. The expensive workout clothes that had never seen a gym, the jewelry bought with money they didn't have, the designer handbags cluttering my dresser. What are you doing? She shrieked. Packing, I replied calmly, tossing Lucas's gaming console onto the pile. Isn't this what you wanted? Not our stuff. Your stuff. I paused, holding up a ridiculously overpriced sweater. Oh, sweetheart. I'm not the one who's leaving. This is my house. My name is on the deed. Her face cycled through white, red, then an alarming shade of purple. She yanked out her phone and dialed. Yes, I need the police and an ambulance, she cried, her voice instantly shaky and tearful. My mother-in-law is having some kind of breakdown. She's acting erratically, and I'm scared for our safety. Mother-in-law? Since when was I family? She's threatening us, Rebecca continued loudly, throwing our belongings around. I think she's having a psychotic episode. I kept packing. Let her call whoever she wanted. This was still my house. What I didn't know was that Rebecca had been planning this moment for months. 7 minutes after her performance, the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw 2 police officers and a paramedic on my porch. Behind them was a black sedan I didn't recognize. Mrs. Grant, the older officer said, polite but cautious. We received a call about a disturbance. Please come in, I said, stepping aside. Though I'm not sure what disturbance they're referring to. Rebecca appeared dramatically at the top of the stairs, her face streaked with what looked like very real tears. Officers, thank God you're here, she sobbed. She just started throwing our things around, yelling that we don't belong here. I've never seen her like this. The younger officer looked between us. Ma'am, is this your residence? Yes, I said evenly. I've lived here for 32 years. And you? He asked Rebecca. I'm Rebecca Grant, Lucas's wife. We've been staying here to help take care of her since her husband passed. Help take care of me? I almost laughed. The woman who couldn't remember to flush the toilet was, apparently, taking care of me. Mrs. Grant, the older officer said gently, in the careful tone reserved for fragile situations. Your daughter-in-law says you were packing their belongings and asked them to leave. Can you tell us what happened? Certainly, I replied. Rebecca informed me that if I didn't like living with them, I was welcome to leave. Since this is my house, I suggested the alternative. The paramedic stepped forward. He looked young, too young. His expression cautious but uncertain. Mrs. Grant, I'm just going to ask you a few routine questions to make sure you're okay. What day is it? Tuesday, October 15th, I said without hesitation. It's approximately 2:30 p.m., and aside from this circus in my living room, I'm perfectly fine. And who's the president? I answered. Then, because I was irritated, I added my address, my social security number, and recited the opening lines of Hamlet. The paramedic blinked. She seems completely lucid. That's when the man from the black sedan stepped inside. He was tall, impeccably dressed, silver-haired, and carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to being believed. Officers, he said smoothly. I'm Dr. Jonathan Blake, psychiatrist. Mrs. Grant has been one of my patients. I stared at him. No, she hasn't. I've never seen this man in my life. Evelyn, he said softly, with practiced condescension. You came to see me last month. You were concerned about memory lapses and increasing paranoia regarding your family. That's absurd, I snapped. I don't have memory issues and I'm not paranoid. Rebecca appeared on the staircase, tears flowing freely now. Mom, she whispered, voice trembling. You don't remember? You've been so confused lately. Just last week you accused Lucas and me of stealing your credit cards. Because you did steal my credit cards, I said sharply. The room went quiet. The officers exchanged a glance. Dr. Blake nodded gravely. Angry denial is very common in patients experiencing cognitive decline. Accusations of theft, conspiracies, these are textbook symptoms. I do not have dementia. Mrs. Grant, the older officer said carefully, would you mind if we took a look around the house? Please, I said. I insist. I led them through my home. The living room where Rebecca's magazines littered my coffee table. The kitchen, sink full of their dishes. My home office where Lucas's poker site was still open on my computer. And finally the guest room, clothes, shoes, bags spread across the floor where I'd been packing. To someone without context, it didn't look good. Dr. Blake surveyed the scene with exaggerated concern. Evelyn, he said gently, can you explain why you were packing these items? Because Rebecca told me to leave, I replied evenly. I was helping her pack instead. But these aren't your belongings, he said. You can't just remove them. They're in my house, I said. They've been here 8 months without paying rent. Rebecca sobbed louder. She's been so obsessed with money lately. Yesterday she accused us of not contributing. When we buy groceries all the time. I almost laughed. I wanted to ask her to show a single receipt. Just one. But something in Dr. Blake's eyes stopped me. That's when it hit me. This wasn't panic. This wasn't improvisation. This was rehearsed. Mrs. Grant, Dr. Blake said, voice thick with false sympathy. I think it would be best if you came with us to the hospital. Just for observation. A few tests. And if I refuse? The older officer hesitated. We can't force you. But given the concerns raised about your mental state. I looked around my living room. Rebecca clutching tissues. Lucas staring at the floor. A psychiatrist I'd never met. 2 officers weighing liability. And suddenly I understood exactly what Rebecca had planned. She wasn't calling the police to scare me. She was trying to have me declared incompetent. Lucas stood uselessly near the hallway, hovering like a bad conscience. 2 police officers lingered by the front door. clearly wishing they were anywhere else. A paramedic checked his watch, and in the center of it all stood a psychiatrist I had never seen before, calmly insisting he was my doctor. "You know what?" I said at last. "I'll go to the hospital, but I'm calling my attorney first." Evelyn Rebecca moved fast. Too fast. "You don't need a lawyer," she said sharply. "We're family. We just want you to get better." Family. Right. The same family that had lived in my house rent-free for 8 months and told me I was free to leave if I didn't like it. I picked up my phone and dialed Evelyn Zhao, the attorney who had handled Thomas's estate. She answered on the second ring. "Evelyn, it's Maggie Grant. I need you at Maple Heights, General. Apparently, I'm being sent in for a psychiatric evaluation." "What?" she said. "What's happening?" "I'll explain when you get there." I hung up before anyone could object. The so-called doctor frowned. "Mrs. Grant, involving lawyers at this stage may complicate things unnecessarily." "Doctor," I replied evenly, "since I've never met you before, and since you're not actually my physician, I think legal representation is entirely reasonable." The younger officer blinked. "Wait. If she's never met you, how are you her doctor?" For the first time, Dr. Blake hesitated. "Mrs. Grant is confused about our prior sessions," he said. "That's part of her condition." "Oh," I asked pleasantly. "When exactly did these sessions occur?" "Patient confidentiality. You're discussing my supposed paranoia and memory loss in front of the police," I interrupted. "But you can't tell me when I supposedly saw you?" Rebecca stepped in quickly. "Mom, you don't remember because you've been confused lately. That's why Dr. Blake is here. To help." I turned to her. "Rebecca, for 30 years I managed a household, balanced finances, ran a classroom of teenagers, and remembered every birthday and anniversary in this family. But somehow in the 8 months since you moved in, I've developed sudden onset dementia." The older officer shifted. "Doctor, do you have documentation of prior treatment?" "The records are at my office," Dr. Blake said stiffly. "Which office?" I asked. "What's your practice called? Where is it located?" Another crack. "I don't think this interrogation is helpful to the patient's mental state," he said. "Interrogation?" I laughed. "Officer, I'm asking a man who claims to be my doctor to provide the most basic information about his practice. If that's hostile, then yes, I must be losing my mind." Rebecca's composure began to slip. "Can we just take her to the hospital?" she said urgently. "She clearly needs help." That was when Evelyn Zhao arrived. She came through my front door like a force of nature. Navy suit, briefcase in hand, phone already out. "Which one of you is Dr. Blake?" she asked. The silver-haired man straightened. "I am." "And you are?" "Evelyn Zhao, Mrs. Grant's attorney." She didn't miss a beat. "I just spoke with the state medical board. Funny thing about Dr. Jonathan Blake. Your license was suspended 6 months ago for involvement in fraudulent psychiatric holds." The room went silent. "That's impossible," Rebecca whispered. "Oh, it's very possible," Evelyn said coolly. "In fact, this man, whose real name is Samuel Roth, has quite a history of assisting families in illegally committing elderly relatives, usually for a substantial fee." Dr. Blake was already backing toward the door. "There's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," Evelyn cut in, "is thinking you could run this scam in my client's home." He didn't argue. He left. As the officers began asking Rebecca pointed questions, I understood one thing with chilling clarity. This wasn't over. This was only the beginning. The next morning I sat in Evelyn Zhao's office, sipping coffee from delicate china, while she spread files across her polished mahogany desk. The police had taken statements. Dr. Blake Roth had vanished. Rebecca and Lucas had retreated to the guest room, undoubtedly planning their next move. "How long has this been building?" Evelyn asked. 8 months officially, I said. "But Rebecca's been eyeing this house since the day she walked into it. She always had suggestions about how I could better use the space." Evelyn nodded. "The fake psychiatric hold is a well-known scheme. Roth's been operating in at least 3 states. How does it work? A family member reports a breakdown. Roth arrives, pretends to be the patient's doctor, convinces police an emergency hold is necessary. Once the person is committed, The family has 72 hours to file for guardianship. The implications hit me hard. They were trying to have me declared incompetent. Yes, Evelyn said quietly. And your daughter-in-law would have become your legal guardian, with control over your house, your finances, your medical decisions. Everything. I thought of Rebecca's performance the day before. The tears. The certainty. The rehearsed concern. She planned this, I said. Evelyn opened another file. I did some digging on Rebecca Grant last night. Fascinating woman. Before she married your son, she was Rebecca Parker. Then Rebecca Martinez. Then Rebecca Thompson. I looked up slowly. So this isn't her first time. No, Evelyn said. Just her most ambitious. 3 marriages. 3 elderly husbands. The first was 72. He died of a sudden heart attack and left her his condo in Florida. The second was 68. He fell down a flight of stairs and somehow his entire investment portfolio ended up in her name. The third was 75. He signed over his assets just weeks before he was found dead in his swimming pool. My hands were shaking. And now she's married to my son, I said quietly. Lucas was 42, healthy, strong. But his mother? Evelyn let the silence stretch. 67, she said at last. A paid-off house. A comfortable retirement account. Bingo. Lucas may not even know what Rebecca is planning, Evelyn added. Some people are incredibly skilled at manipulation. I stood and walked to the window, staring down at the busy street below. Normal people going about their lives, completely unaware that predators like Rebecca existed. So what do we do? I asked. Evelyn didn't hesitate. First, document everything. Install security cameras today. Record every interaction. Second, we contact the other jurisdictions where she's operated and establish a pattern. Then she smiled grimly. And third, we give Rebecca Grant exactly what she deserves. That afternoon, I came home to find Rebecca in my kitchen, calmly making herself a sandwich. She looked up, her expression carefully neutral. How are you feeling today, Mom? Mom. She had never called me that before yesterday. I'm feeling quite well, thank you, I said. But I am curious about something. What's that? She asked, all concern and sweetness. The perfect daughter-in-law tending to her confused mother-in-law. I was wondering about your previous marriages. Her hand froze halfway to the mustard jar. My what? Your previous husbands. I spoke with a very interesting police detective today, I continued. He had some fascinating stories about Rebecca Parker, Rebecca Martinez, and Rebecca Thompson. The color drained from her face. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. I reached into my purse and placed the small recording device Evelyn had given me on the counter. Just like you don't know that Dr. Blake's real name is Samuel Roth, and that he's a convicted fraud. She stared at the device like it might bite her. You can't record me without my permission. Actually, I can, I said calmly. This is a one-party consent state. And this is my house. She backed toward the doorway, the mask slipping completely. That's when Lucas walked in from the living room, remote still in his hand. What's going on? Your mother is recording us, Rebecca said quickly. She's paranoid. Lucas frowned. Mom. Because, I said evenly, your wife has been married 3 times before you, and all 3 of her previous husbands are dead. The remote slipped from his fingers and hit the floor. That's not true, Lucas said, but his voice wavered. Evelyn, I said into my phone already on speaker. Show him. Evelyn's voice came through clearly. Lucas, I'm emailing you the marriage licenses and death certificates now. Lucas's phone buzzed. Your wife married Thomas Parker in 2018. He died 6 months later. Carlos Martinez in 2019, 8 months. William Thompson in 2021, 4 months. Rebecca finally found her voice. Those were coincidences. I can't help it if I attracted older men with health problems. Older men. I repeated. Thomas Parker was 72. Carlos Martinez was 68. William Thompson was 75. And now you're married to my 42-year-old son. That's quite a pattern, Rebecca. Lucas scrolled through his phone, his face growing paler with each swipe. You told me you'd only been married once, he said quietly. You said he died in a car accident. I didn't want you to think I was unlucky in love, she said, trying to soften her voice. People judge widows, especially young widows. You're 39, I said flatly. Lucas looked up again. What about Dr. Blake? The man who came here yesterday claiming to be Mom's psychiatrist. Rebecca's eyes darted. I don't know anything about him. The police must have. Actually, Evelyn interrupted. We have phone records showing 3 calls from your cell phone to Samuel Roth over the past 2 weeks. One lasted 47 minutes. Rebecca backed toward the stairs. That's impossible. Would you like the exact times and durations? Evelyn asked coolly. Lucas, you have to believe me, Rebecca pleaded. Your mother is trying to turn you against me. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. Rebecca, you tried to have me committed yesterday. You brought a fake doctor into my home and told the police I was having a breakdown. I don't need to turn anyone against you. Lucas stared at his screen. Rebecca, he said slowly, this says Thomas Parker changed his will 2 weeks before he died. He left everything to you. He loved me, she snapped. His children were horrible. And Carlos Martinez signed power of attorney to you the day before he fell down the stairs, Lucas continued. He was getting forgetful, she said weakly. The silence that followed was devastating. I was helping him manage his affairs, Rebecca insisted. William Thompson transferred his bank accounts into your name 3 days before he drowned in his pool. Her voice was climbing now, brittle with panic. These are coincidences. You're making it sound like I killed them. The room went completely still. She'd said the quiet part out loud. Lucas slowly lowered his phone to his side. Rebecca, did you kill those men? Of course not, she snapped. I loved them. They were good to me. It's not my fault they died. But it is convenient, I said quietly, that they all died shortly after giving you access to their money. Evelyn's voice came through the phone again, steady and cold. Rebecca, the police departments in Miami, Phoenix, and Portland are reopening all 3 cases, especially now that they've discovered your connection to Samuel Roth. Rebecca looked trapped, her eyes darting around the room. And I remembered what I'd learned the day before. Cornered people are dangerous. Then she straightened. You want the truth? She said, suddenly calm. Fine. Those old men were pathetic. Lonely. Desperate. They threw money at any woman who paid attention to them. And they got exactly what they paid for. Lucas stepped back as if she'd struck him. What are you saying? I'm saying your mother is right, Rebecca replied flatly. I married old, rich men. They died. I inherited their money. And yes, she looked directly at me. I plan to do the same thing to her. The words detonated in the room. But here's what your precious mother doesn't understand, Rebecca continued, her mask completely gone. I don't need Lucas anymore. My stomach dropped. I already transferred half of her retirement account into my personal account last month. My blood turned to ice. What? Rebecca smiled for the first time since yesterday. It's amazing what you can do with someone's signature when you bring them their morning coffee every day, she said lightly. A little something to make them drowsy. A few papers to sign. And voila! The pieces slammed together. The exhaustion. The groggy mornings. The documents I couldn't remember signing. You drugged me, I said, my voice hollow. Just a little, she replied. You were so stressed. I thought I was helping. Lucas stared at her in horror. You drugged my mother. Oh, don't act shocked, Danny, Rebecca scoffed. You were happy enough spending the money. The Cancun trip. The gaming equipment. The clothes. Where did you think it came from? I thought you were working, he whispered. I thought. Please, she interrupted. You're even more naive than she is. Evelyn's voice cut through the silence. Rebecca, this entire conversation is being recorded. And as of 10 minutes ago, the FBI has frozen every account associated with your social security number. Rebecca's confidence cracked. You can't do that. When someone is suspected of serial elder fraud across multiple states, Evelyn replied coolly, the federal government can do quite a lot. She paused. In fact, Agent Olivia Barnes should be arriving any moment now. The doorbell rang. Through the window, black SUVs lined the street. You set me up, Rebecca whispered. No, I said, standing straighter than I had in months. I protected myself. There's a difference. The FBI moved quickly and professionally. Agent Barnes, a woman about my age, gray-haired with calm, steady eyes, placed Rebecca in handcuffs and read her rights. I couldn't miss the irony. The same rights Rebecca had tried to strip from me. Mrs. Grant, Agent Barnes said afterward, we'll need a full statement tomorrow, but I want you to know you were very brave. I wasn't brave, I said honestly. I just didn't want to be thrown out of my own house. She smiled slightly. Sometimes that's enough. After they left, Lucas and I sat in the living room in silence. He looked smaller somehow. Older. The man who'd stood by while his wife humiliated me was gone. Mom, he said at last, his voice breaking. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I swear to you I didn't know, he said. I had no idea what Rebecca was really doing. I searched his face, weighing every word. Then I said quietly, but you did know she disrespected me. You heard her tell me to get out of my own house. And you chose to say nothing. He dropped his gaze and nodded. You're right. I was weak. After I lost my job, I was desperate to feel wanted. I told myself it was easier not to see the warning signs. I didn't want to rock the boat. He swallowed hard. And now I understand that I chose a woman who was planning to murder my mother, over being the son who stopped her. When he finally looked up, his eyes were full. Can you ever forgive me? I reached across the table and took his hand. Lucas, you're my son. I love you. But you need to hear this clearly. Respect is not negotiable. Not in my home. Not in my life. I understand, he said hoarsely. And Mom, I'm moving out. You deserve your house back. I squeezed his fingers. One step at a time. First we recover what Rebecca stole. Then we make sure she never gets the chance to destroy another family. What I didn't tell him was that I already knew exactly how that recovered money would be used. Rebecca Grant believed she could prey on vulnerable seniors without consequence. She was very wrong. 3 weeks after her arrest, I sat in Agent Barnes's office, staring at a figure that made my stomach knot. She took $347,000 from you in 8 months, Agent Barnes said, sliding the statements toward me. But here's the part that doesn't add up. She only spent about $60,000. Then where's the rest? That's what we're tracing. Rebecca wasn't acting alone. Your case appears to be one small piece of a much larger scheme. How much larger? I asked. Agent Barnes opened a thick file. At least 15 confirmed victims across 6 states. All elderly. All targeted using the same methods: fraudulent power of attorney documents, fake psychiatric holds, forged signatures. 15 people like me. 15 people who didn't fight back, she corrected. Most are now in nursing facilities, legally declared incompetent, while their assets are controlled by family members who are actually part of the network. The scale of it left me cold. Rebecca had accomplices: Samuel Roth, several fake doctors, corrupt attorneys, and what we believe is a placement coordinator. A placement coordinator? Someone embedded in healthcare or senior services. They identify wealthy, isolated seniors and feed that information to the operation. I thought about how effortlessly Rebecca had entered my life through Lucas. So how did they find me? We're still investigating that. But Mrs. Grant, we need your help. What kind of help? The other victims can't testify. They've been declared incompetent, frightened into silence, or manipulated into believing they're truly ill. You're the only person who interrupted the process in time. What are you asking me to do? Agent Barnes leaned forward. Help us expose the rest of the operation. There's someone at the top we haven't identified yet. Someone who's been running this for at least 5 years. I pictured those 15 people, alive but stripped of their autonomy, their savings draining away while families were told everything was for their own good. What would that involve? I asked. Letting myself be used as bait? The plan was deceptively simple. 3 days later, Agent Barnes explained it again over coffee in my kitchen, while Lucas listened in stunned silence. We'll quietly circulate word that you recovered your money and are looking for a safe place to invest it, she said. We'll monitor communications tied to Rebecca's network. Eventually, someone will approach you. Someone who seems trustworthy, she continued. A recommendation from church, a community group, maybe even a friend. and then we follow the trail. Lucas shook his head. Mom, this is dangerous. What if something goes wrong? I patted his hand. Something already did. Your wife tried to have me committed and steal my life savings. At this point, danger is a matter of perspective. Agent Barnes smiled. Mrs. Grant will be protected at all times. Agents nearby, recording equipment on her person. And we expect whoever approaches her to move slowly. These people are patient, she added. She was right about that. Took exactly 6 days. I was at the grocery store on Thursday morning when a woman stopped me in the cereal aisle. She looked to be around my age, neatly dressed, with that polished professional air that immediately signals safe and reliable. Excuse me, she said with an easy smile. Aren't you Evelyn Grant? I'm Agnes Klein. I think our daughters went to high school together. I didn't recognize her at all, but I returned the smile. Nice to meet you, Agnes. I hope I'm not intruding, she continued, lowering her voice slightly, but I couldn't help overhearing you talking to the pharmacist about managing your retirement funds. I went through something very similar after my husband passed. Every internal warning bell went off. I hadn't spoken to the pharmacist about my finances. Not even close. And I was fortunate enough to find a wonderful financial advisor, she went on. He specializes in helping widows protect their assets, especially from family members who might try to take advantage. There it was. Perfect timing. Perfect sympathy. That's very kind of you to mention, I said carefully. Agnes slipped a business card into my hand. His name is Thomas Moore. He's helped so many women in situations like ours. Very discreet. Very professional. As soon as she walked away, I pulled out my phone and texted Agent Barnes everything. Her reply came back almost immediately. Perfect. We know Thomas Moore. He's been on our radar for months. 2 days later, Thomas Moore called. He had the smoothest voice I'd heard since my high school drama teacher, warm, reassuring, with just enough concern to make you feel instantly at ease. Mrs. Grant, he said. Agnes Klein suggested I reach out. She mentioned you might be interested in exploring some secure investment options. I might be, I replied, settling into a chair at my kitchen table while Agent Barnes listened from the van across the street. Though I'll admit, I've become a bit cautious lately. Someone recently tried to take advantage of my finances. Oh my, he said softly. Unfortunately, that's becoming far too common. Elder financial abuse is practically epidemic, especially when family members feel entitled. He was good. Really good. Perhaps we could meet for coffee, he suggested. I have an office in downtown Maple Heights. Very comfortable, very private. I specialize in helping seniors protect their wealth from predatory relatives. We scheduled a meeting for the following Tuesday. Beforehand, Agent Barnes filled me in. Moore is sophisticated, she warned. He's been running this scam for at least 3 years. It usually starts with a legitimate-sounding investment. Then comes the request for temporary power of attorney for processing. After that, you disappear. She didn't soften it. Fake medical emergency. Fake psychiatric evaluation. A diagnosis of incompetence. By the time your real family catches on, your assets are gone and you're locked in a facility somewhere. How many victims? I asked. At least 20. This meeting is our chance to get him on tape. Thomas Moore's office looked exactly as it should. Expensive furniture. Diplomas neatly arranged on the walls. Family photos positioned just casually enough to seem authentic. If I hadn't known better, I would have trusted him without hesitation. Mrs. Grant, thank you so much for coming in, he said, shaking my hand. Agnes Klein spoke very highly of you. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 55, with silver hair and kind, grandfatherly eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. The kind of man you'd trust to walk your dog or help you change a tire. Agnes seems lovely, I said, taking a seat across from his desk. She's actually one of my success stories, he replied. When we first met, her stepchildren were attempting to have her declared incompetent to gain access to her late husband's estate. Now her assets are fully protected. How did you manage that? I asked. He leaned forward slightly. Between you and me, Evelyn, may I call you Evelyn? There are legal strategies available to seniors that most people never hear about. Protections that go beyond simple trusts or wills. He paused. We temporarily move assets into a protective holding account, while we establish what's called a senior asset shield. Temporarily? I asked. Usually about 2 weeks, he said smoothly. During that time, your funds are completely safe from anyone who might claim you're incapable of managing your affairs. I pretended to think it over. That sounds complicated. Thomas smiled. Not at all. I handle everything, Thomas said smoothly. You simply sign a few documents granting me temporary authority to move your funds, and I take care of the rest. Agnes went through the exact same process. And where exactly are my assets held during this time? I asked. Thomas's smile didn't flicker. In a secure holding account managed by my firm. Fully insured. Completely safe. And I'll be able to see statements? Of course. You'll receive full documentation showing precisely where every dollar is at all times. I see, I said slowly. And if something were to happen to me during those 2 weeks? A medical emergency, for example. He leaned back slightly as if pleased by the question. That's actually the strength of the system. If you were to become temporarily incapacitated, the protective hold remains in place until you're able to resume managing your affairs. So my family wouldn't be able to access the money. Exactly. Predatory relatives can't interfere. No one can pressure you into decisions you're not well enough to make. It's designed to be foolproof. I wondered how foolproof it had been for the people who vanished. Thomas, I said, meeting his eyes, I have to be honest. This sounds almost too good to be true. How do I know this isn't some kind of scam? His expression shifted instantly, hurt, almost wounded. Evelyn, I completely understand your hesitation. After everything you've endured with your family, of course you'd be cautious. But I've been helping seniors protect their assets for over 10 years. I can provide references, testimonials, anything you need to feel comfortable. I appreciate that, I said. I'd like some time to think it over. He nodded, then lowered his voice just slightly. Of course. But based on what Agnes mentioned about your recent difficulties, I do feel obligated to say this. Time may not be on your side. My stomach tightened. If your family is already laying groundwork to question your competency, every day we wait gives them another opportunity to strengthen their case. There it was. The pressure. Urgency built on fear. How quickly could this be done? I asked. If I decided to proceed, I could have the paperwork ready by tomorrow, he replied. The entire process could be completed by Friday. For days to drain my accounts and erase my autonomy. I'll call you tomorrow with my decision, I said, standing. As we shook hands, Thomas smiled warmly. You're doing the right thing by being careful, Evelyn. It shows exactly why you deserve to have your assets protected. By the time I reached my car, I felt nauseous. He was polished, convincing, perfectly engineered to prey on people who had already been hurt once. But beneath the nausea was something stronger. Anger. Agent Barnes was waiting in my kitchen when I got home, along with 2 other agents I hadn't met before. The recording equipment had captured every second of my conversation with Thomas Moore. Excellent work, Mrs. Grant, Agent Barnes said, pulling up the audio files on her laptop. He laid out the entire operation for us. How many people do you think he's done this to? I asked, pouring coffee for everyone. Based on what we found in Rebecca's records, she said. We believe Thomas Moore is the placement coordinator for the whole network. He identifies the targets, gains their trust, gets the power of attorney signed, then passes them off to the medical side. One of the other agents, a young man who looked barely old enough to be out of college, leaned forward. We think he's been running this for at least 5 years. Where does the money go? I asked. Through his investment firm, he said. Then offshore. Cayman Islands. How much are we talking about? Agent Barnes didn't hesitate. Conservatively? Around $12 million. I set my coffee cup down harder than I meant to. 12 million, I repeated. Stolen from elderly people. And that's only what we can confirm so far, she said. She closed the file and looked at me directly. Mrs. Grant, we're ready to move forward, but you need to understand the risk. If Moore senses anything, if we move too quickly, he could disappear. And then you'd lose him. Possibly for good. I didn't hesitate. What do you need me to do? Call him tomorrow, Agent Barnes said. Tell him you're ready to proceed. We'll have agents in place, everything recorded. Once he has you sign the power of attorney, we'll have enough to take him down. And what about the people he's already trapped? I asked quietly. The ones in nursing homes. Agent Barnes didn't sugarcoat it. Once we arrest Moore and seize his records, we can start undoing what he's done. We'll work to get those people released and their money returned. But it won't be fast. Some of them have been locked in the system for years. That night sleep never came. I kept replaying the moment in the grocery store. The ease with which Agnes Klein had approached me, the practiced warmth in her smile. Was she another victim who'd been coerced into recruiting others, or had she always been part of the machine? Then my thoughts shifted to the 15 people Agent Barnes had mentioned. 15 seniors sitting in nursing homes right now, being told they were too confused to go home, too fragile to manage their own affairs, probably being reassured that their families had abandoned them. 15 people who didn't know their savings were gone, while medication dulled their resistance. At 3 in the morning, I gave up on sleep and sat at my kitchen table with a notepad. If I was going to help expose this operation, I needed to be prepared. I wrote down every question I wanted Thomas Moore to answer, questions designed to make him explain his scam in his own words. The next morning I called his office. Evelyn, he said pleasantly. I was hoping to hear from you. Have you made a decision? I have, I replied. I'd like to move forward. Excellent, he said without hesitation. Can you come in this afternoon? I already have the paperwork prepared. Actually, I said, pausing just long enough to sound uncertain, I was wondering if we could meet somewhere more private. Your office felt a little formal. Silence. What did you have in mind? He asked carefully. My home, I said. I'd feel more comfortable reviewing everything there. Another pause, longer this time. I suppose that would be acceptable, he said finally. Would 3 o'clock work? Perfect. After we hung up, I called Agent Barnes. He's coming to my house this afternoon. Even better, she said. We'll wire the entire house for audio and video. Mrs. Grant, by the end of today, we should have enough to dismantle the whole network. At 2:45, I sat in my living room and watched through the window as Thomas Moore pulled into my driveway. He stepped out of his car carrying a leather briefcase, looking exactly like what he pretended to be. A concerned financial professional making a house call for an elderly client. What he didn't know was that FBI agents were positioned in 3 neighboring houses, that my living room was saturated with recording equipment, and that the woman he intended to strip of her independence already knew every move he planned to make. I opened the door wearing my most grateful widow's smile. Thomas, thank you so much for coming. This feels much more comfortable. Of course, Evelyn, he said warmly. I want you to feel completely at ease. As I let him inside, I wondered how many other seniors had heard those same words moments before signing away their freedom. But today was different. Today, Thomas Moore was going to explain his own crime on camera. He spread the documents across my coffee table with the smooth efficiency of someone who'd done this countless times. Powers of attorney, asset transfer forms, medical directives, every tool needed to erase a life. Now, Evelyn, he said gently, I want you to understand exactly what each document does. He pointed to the first page. This grants me temporary authority to move your assets into the protective holding account. I picked up the power of attorney and pretended to read carefully. This language is very broad, I said. It gives you authority over all my financial and medical decisions. Only temporarily, he replied quickly, and strictly for your protection. And when does it stop being temporary? I asked. He hesitated just a fraction of a second. Once I determine your assets are fully shielded from potential threats. I see, I said, setting the paper down. And who decides when that happens? Well, he said lightly, I do, based on my professional assessment. So, I said calmly, you decide when I get control of my own life back. His smile flickered just barely. Evelyn, I understand your concern, but you need to trust the process. This is exactly how we protected Agnes Klein's assets. Speaking of Agnes, I said casually, I'd really like to talk to her directly about her experience. Would you mind giving me her phone number? Thomas's smile tightened. I'm afraid I can't do that. Client confidentiality. Of course, I replied easily. But surely she wouldn't object. She's the one who recommended you after all. He shifted in his chair. Perhaps we could arrange for her to contact you after we finalize the paperwork. Why after? I asked. He hesitated. Just long enough. Evelyn, he said carefully, I'm sensing some reluctance. Is there something in particular that's worrying you? I leaned back and studied him. This man. This professional predator who made his living dismantling other people's lives while wearing the face of a trusted advisor. Yes, I said calmly. There is something I'm curious about. He waited. How did Agnes Klein know I was talking to the pharmacist about my retirement funds? His expression went completely blank. I'm sorry, he said. When Agnes approached me in the grocery store, I continued. She said she overheard me discussing my finances with the pharmacist. But that conversation never happened. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Perhaps you've forgotten, he said weakly. I smiled thinly. Thomas, I'm 67, not 97. My memory is excellent. So I'll ask again, how did Agnes know to approach me? The warmth drained from his face. Evelyn, I think you may be overanalyzing an innocent encounter. Am I? I said. Because I'm also curious about something else. You told me you've been helping seniors for over a decade. Yet your business license was filed only 3 years ago. That did it. Thomas began gathering the papers into his briefcase, movements sharp and hurried. I don't think today is an appropriate day for you to be making complex financial decisions. Actually, I said standing, I think it's the perfect day. I walked to the window. Thomas, do you see that van across the street? He turned. His face went pale. That's FBI agent Olivia Barnes, I said. She's been listening to our entire conversation. He shot to his feet, shoving documents into the briefcase. This is entrapment. No, I said quietly. Entrapment is what you do to elderly people. This is accountability. He lunged toward the door, but it opened first. Agent Barnes stepped inside, flanked by 2 other agents. Thomas Moore, she said evenly. You're under arrest for elder fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. As they read him his rights and let him out in handcuffs, he twisted around and looked straight at me. The hatred in his eyes was unmistakable. You have no idea what you've just done, he spat. This goes far beyond me. Agent Barnes closed the door behind them and turned back with a measured smile. Mrs. Grant, we couldn't have done this without you. What happens now? I asked. Now we use Moore's records to locate every victim and start getting them released. And we follow the money. 2 hours later my phone rang. Agent Barnes's voice was tight. Mrs. Grant, we've been reviewing Moore's files. This isn't just regional. My stomach clenched. What do you mean? It's national. And the person at the top. She paused. You're not going to believe this. Who is it? Moore reported to someone known only as the coordinator. Based on financial flows and communication patterns, we believe this operation spans at least 15 states. How much money? Conservatively, over $50 million stolen from elderly victims in the last 8 years. I sank into my kitchen chair. 50 million? Mrs. Grant, she said quietly, you didn't just help us catch a scammer. You helped expose what may be the largest elder fraud operation in U.S. history. But the biggest shock hadn't come yet. The next morning, Agent Barnes arrived at my house carrying a thick file. We've identified the coordinator, she said, placing it on my kitchen table. And you're going to want to sit down. I poured coffee, my hands unsteady. Who is it? She opened the file and slid out a photograph. A professional headshot. A woman in her 50s. Perfectly styled silver hair. Kind, reassuring eyes. I stared at it, confusion flooding my chest. I don't understand, I said. Who is this? Agent Barnes met my gaze. Dr. Nancy Roth, Agent Barnes said. She's been running the entire operation through a senior care consulting firm in Chicago. Roth? I asked. As in Samuel Roth, the fake psychiatrist? Her brother, she confirmed. Then she paused. And here's the part most people don't expect. Dr. Nancy Roth is a real physician. She's a licensed geriatrician. I looked more closely at the photograph she placed in front of me. The woman's face stirred something faintly familiar, though I couldn't place where I might have seen her. She uses her legitimate medical practice to identify elderly patients who are both wealthy and isolated. Agent Barnes continued. Once they're flagged, she refers them to what she calls specialized elder care coordinators. People like Thomas Moore, I said. Exactly. And because she's an actual doctor, her patients trust her. Over the past 8 years, Agent Barnes explained, Dr. Roth had built an extensive network. Fake financial advisors, corrupt attorneys, and fraudulent medical professionals operating across 15 states. They've stolen more than $50 million, she said, and forcibly placed over 200 elderly people into secured facilities against their will. 200. The number made my chest tighten. We began coordinated arrests nationwide yesterday, she went on. So far, we've recovered 37 victims, and we're still working to locate the rest. Then she reached for another document. Mrs. Grant, there's something else you need to see. My stomach dropped. We found your name in Dr. Roth's files. My blood went cold. What does that mean? You were targeted 18 months ago, she said. Long before Rebecca entered your life. She handed me a folder labeled with my name. Inside were copies of my medical records, bank statements, property documents, along with photographs of my house taken from the street. How did she get all of this? I asked quietly. We believe someone in your medical provider's office was supplying information to Dr. Roth's network, Agent Barnes replied. The investigation is ongoing. My thoughts flew back to my annual physical 18 months earlier. Routine exams, standard blood work, nothing out of the ordinary. Had someone there decided I was worth selling? Rebecca didn't find your family by chance, Agent Barnes said gently. She was directed to your son Lucas specifically. Directed? I repeated. Dr. Roth's research identified you as an ideal target. What made me ideal? Agent Barnes flipped through the file. Wealthy widow. Adult children living at a distance. No close relatives nearby. Good health but aging. You matched every risk factor on their profile. The realization hit me like a physical blow. So Lucas didn't just meet Rebecca, I said slowly. She went looking for him. That's our conclusion. Her previous marriages followed the same pattern. Identify the elderly target, then gain access through an adult child or grandchild. I thought about Lucas's whirlwind relationship with Rebecca, how quickly everything had moved, how eager she'd been to insert herself into my life. I dismissed it as infatuation. It hadn't been. There's more, Agent Barnes said quietly. I braced myself. Dr. Roth was arrested in Chicago. When we searched her office, we found detailed plans for your case. My hands curled into fists. You were scheduled to be placed in a secured facility in Florida, she said. You would have been kept sedated and isolated while they drained your accounts. The room felt suddenly very small. For how long? I asked. Until you died, Agent Barnes replied evenly. Or until the money ran out. The casual brutality of it stole my breath. And my son, I said quietly. What would they have told Lucas? That you were receiving the best possible care for your dementia, she answered. And that visits weren't recommended because they caused agitation. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the street where I'd lived for 32 years, the neighborhood where I'd raised Lucas, buried my husband, and planned to grow old in peace. Mrs. Grant, Agent Barnes said gently, I want you to understand something. What you did didn't just save you. Because of your actions, we were able to rescue dozens of other victims and dismantle the largest elder fraud operation we've ever encountered. I turned back to her. What happens to the money they stole? We're working to return as much as possible to the victims. In your case, we've recovered all of your funds plus interest. As for the people placed in facilities, we're coordinating with state authorities to have them released and reunited with their families. It will take time, but they're going home. That afternoon, I sat in my garden with a cup of tea, letting the reality of it all sink in. 6 months ago, I'd been a lonely widow allowing her son and his wife to take advantage of her kindness. Today, I was a woman who had helped bring down a criminal empire. My phone rang. It was Lucas. "Mom, I just saw the news," he said. "Dr. Roth's arrest is everywhere." "I know. They're saying you helped the FBI shut down the entire network." I did what needed to be done. There was a pause. Then quietly, "Mom, I'm so proud of you. And I'm so sorry for everything Rebecca put you through. For everything I allowed." "Lucas," I said softly, "you were a victim too. She manipulated you just like she tried to manipulate me. What matters is that you didn't stay trapped. You fought back." I smiled as a cardinal landed on the bird feeder outside my window. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do to a predator is refuse to be prey. 6 months later, I received a letter from the Department of Justice thanking me for my role in dismantling the Roth network. The operation rescued 187 elderly victims and recovered $42 million in stolen assets. But the real reward came 3 weeks after that, when a woman named Agnes Porter called me. She'd been trapped in a facility in Nevada for 14 months while her assets were drained. "Mrs. Grant," she said, her voice steady and strong, "because of what you did, I'm back in my own home with my family. You gave me my life back." That evening, sitting in the same living room where Rebecca had once tried to convince police I was losing my mind, I understood something clearly. I wasn't the woman who'd let her daughter-in-law walk all over her. I wasn't the grieving widow who'd been too polite to stand up for herself. I was Evelyn Grant. I was 67 years old. And I was nobody's victim. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.